Good evening, and welcome to This Week in Joe's Basement. I'm Joe, and this is my basement. So, This Week in Joe's Basement, 2 adolescent tales of life on the edge, but first, some viewer mail. Got, another entry in the ongoing saga of criticism from our friend Him, who writes, Joe, I would have written sooner, except that I've been busy digging myself out from under that dump truck full of shit that you dumped on me in your last show. I nearly suffocated, and my couch still stinks from the outpouring of feces that flowed from your mouth out of my TV screen to be deposited all over me. Whew! The problem became clear to me at the end of your tirade when you indicated that you were all actors, thereby obtaining some license to screw up, I guess. He's referring to, episode 29, when I explained to him what actors were. And he's responding. The trouble is that all this time I've been under the impression that you're supposed to be comedians, which is also an actor, but supposedly a funny one. You see, I thought all this stuff was funny, but apparently you've been taking it seriously. Didn't you used to think that it was comedy with some serious message at one time? Maybe it was that award you got for that bit about black people, saying what they think about white people. We already know what white people think. Didn't you know that nobody would watch that serious part if there weren't any comedic parts? You know. There was also something about me not recognizing people from previous episodes, which you tried to blame on poor little me, but it's more of a function of your personal domination of the show, thus causing the other actors to be somewhat faceless. But I don't feel like pursuing that subject right now because I'm more worried about getting shot by you. I'm sorry to be so negative, but the gun thing was poorly done. Not your fault, as you said this was your first time, so blame must go to your instructor. Your grip was so weak that the pistol almost flew out of your hand. Him is referring to episode 29, Shooting Things, where I went to a shooting range and learned how to fire a gun for the first time. And him feels that we did a very poor job of covering the gun issue because my technique was poor. And looking for the cause, he blames us on some deep-seated macho thing, I guess, signed Him. All right. Another item here we got is the form of an unusual object whose function I am completely unable to discern, and it's a series of Post-it notes which vertically spell Joe's basement, and for each letter of Joe, this person is trying to use it as an acronym. Each letter stands for some remark about the show. For example, J is just jingoism, O is outer opportunity, etc., and spells Joe's basement. Only he couldn't think of something witty to say for each letter of Joe's basement. Anyway, he then sort of degenerates into words that begin with N, and he signs it, and he claims that his brother manufactured this item, which I don't know what it does. Okay, we've got a letter from Scoop Spillane from the Hood, who writes to me as follows. Dear Joe, you are my hero. I watch your show in my basement and make little paper characters, pretending that I have a show called This Week in Scoop's Basement. If I weren't Catholic, you would be my God. Parentheses, God with lowercase g. My only other thrill is crossing the Midway at midnight. You ought to get out more, Scoop. Please excuse me for not telling you any more details of a personal nature. What are your 5 favorite movies? Can you loan me some money? Sincerely, Scoop Spillane. A nice personal note from with a practical touch from our friend Scoop. All right, so this week, 2 adolescent tales of life on the edge. One by a woman named Michelle Heuer, who tells about her experiences as a punk growing up in England and running away from parents, policemen, and ex-husbands. Another story is John Harriman, who tells us about his encounters with a policeman and a principal at his high school. So, without further ado, Life on the Edge this week in Joe's Basement.
Okay, I can tell you a story of when I was a teenager and I'd done the runner. I ran off from my home. Well, when I was, I think I was, yeah, it must have been about 13 years old. I didn't get on with my parents. And I figured, just see you later, I'm going to run away. I couldn't handle being, you know, stepfather pressure anymore. So off I went. And
where did you live?
Okay, I lived in London, in a town called Romford. It's on the east end of London. It's just kind of on the outside, you know, around there somewhere anyway. And thought I was real hip, you know. I used to go hang out with punks and stuff, and, you know, our teenagers do. And anyway, I had this friend, Tony Barbaras. He was a punk. He used to have tattoos, covered from head to toe with tattoos, right? And he had a girlfriend, Julie, and we used to hang out together a lot, big time. And they said, okay, let's get a band together. We're going to France, Italy, Spain, Mallorca, Malta, and we're going to grab a person from each part of the country, and get a band together. I'm like, yeah, this is really great, you know. So she had a passport made up in his name, her name, but his name, you know what I mean, like Julie Barbaras. And I borrowed her birth certificate, and I went to the post office, and I got myself a passport. This was a one-day passport, okay? And I went to France on a one-day passport under a false name. We had the same birth date. We had the same, you know, address and everything. The only thing was different was the last name. Okay, so we both was Julie. I was Julie O'Connell and she was Julie Barbaras, you know. So we went to France. So off we went, and where did we go first? We went to a place called Montparnasse. See, I wasn't aware of where I was going and what was going on. I was just there, you know. I was just there with them, you know. I wasn't, I remember one place though was Montparnasse, and somehow I suppose it was because, you know, we all shaved our heads, by the way. Well, actually, I didn't shave my head intentionally. Somebody did it for me without me knowing. They got me absolutely wasted, paralytic drunk the night before we were going, and my hair was pretty much the same as it was now than it was then, you know. And I woke up in the morning and my head was hanging over the bathtub, and I was shaven. I didn't have any hair left, you know, and I was really, really mad. I was really mad. I mean, you could just tell I was really mad. I mean, I just went nuts. Well, anyway, everything cooled down then. So we're in France now, and they knew people out there I didn't know. And, well, this is kind of a sad story, but, you know, it's kind of interesting. I think so anyway. And Tony Barbaras was an absolute dick. I mean, he was an arsehole, you know, he was the biggest prat around, you know, at least I thought anyway. And he used to beat up on his girlfriends, you know, and I used to watch this. I used to watch this quite often, and I couldn't really say anything because I knew I'd get my teeth knocked in, you know. If I'd do anything or say anything, you know. And anyway, I just let it be, and he tried to get me on the game. You know, France is big for the prostitution, you know. And I was like, fuck you, sorry, see you later, I'm not doing this, you know. And they left me stranded in the middle of France. Absolutely, I was on my own, didn't have nothing, just me and a few clothes, and that's it. Well, I hung out, you know, made friends with people, bummed off the streets, bummed around, you know, and pretty much lived that way, and until I met this one guy. And he was from Australia, and he'd been in France for like 6 months, you know, studying France and French and all that. And he wanted to go to see England, and because, you know, it's just across the water. So I figured, well, I'd like to go back to England, you know, to get things, see what's going on over there. And so what did I do? Okay, so this guy said to me, well, I'll make a deal with you. If you go to England, I'll pay for your fare, only if you show me England. So I said, that sounds good. So we went down and we got on the ferry and we went into England, and there we are in England. The only thing is they stopped me at the passport place because they wanted to know, you know, about my passport because it was like all ripped in two. Well, I got away with that anyway. I was like, you got to help me. I got to get back to England. I mean, I'm English. You can't kick me out of my own country, you know. So anyway, here I am in England, and I showed this one guy all around as much of England as I could. Didn't have any money or anything, so I was pretty much eating dog food and cat food or whatever I could get my hands on. Yeah, I ate that. It was pretty much drag. I was squatting in England.
I can never remember how it begins. I need a few bars to play.
Dum dum dum
Yeah.
dum.
Cops. I first met cops when I was in high school. No, junior high school. Oh, I was in 8th grade. And I kept hearing this weird ringing sound in my head, so a friend of mine and I, we went out at night, mostly on the weekends, and he had this great idea that, you know, wouldn't it be fun to go into other people's houses? You know, late at night, like when they weren't home, if they were on vacation or out to dinner or a show. So we decided we would do this. We were young, you know, we were reckless, we were fun. A couple of fun guys having fun. So
we went the first time, if I remember correctly. We went into a house, nobody was home. We got gloves on our hands. We put gloves on our hands. We wore black. Man from U.N.C.L.E. was big at the time. I looked like Ilya Kuryakin. He looked like Napoleon Solo. I liked that. Thought we were young.
So we broke into this house. We went down into one of those window wells. We lift up the little fencing they had over that, and we went down into the well, and we would punch the window. We punched it pretty hard, and it would break. And we'd reach in, we'd unlock it, and we'd go in the houses. We'd go right in the houses, you know. This is somebody else's house. But we would go in the houses, and we would... Sometimes we'd watch TV. Other times we'd smoke pot and sit there. We didn't really take much. We touched things a lot. We'd touch a countertop or a door or a pillow on a bed or sit on a couch to see if it was comfy and try and get a notion of like the guy or the woman that would sit in this chair, what their contours were. We were kind of strange, I guess. Never really thought about it much. But anyway, we did this a couple of times, and
around the second or third time, we started taking things. I guess it was stealing things, I guess it was stealing things. So we took from the last house we went to, we took a rifle off a fireplace. We thought it was pretty neat, and wait a minute. Hold on. Don't move. Wait. I'll be right with you. Right here. I got this.
This was about, must be over 2 years ago now. We're down in Urbana and doing acid with some of Jonathan's buddies, and for some reason or other, we went out to play a little football. This was in the middle of winter. These are the type of guys that would do acid and play football, okay? And the type of people you get down in Urbana. So one of the guys says, all right, says to another guy, go out for a long one. And he grabs the football and just tosses it way out, and this guy just turns around and runs. And we give up on the game, and we fool around a little bit, and we go back home to where it's warm, have a little bit to drink, smoke some grass, and chill out. And about an hour later, the doorbell rings. We go to answer the door, and here's this guy with the fucking football, and he's covered in sweat. And I'm like, what happened to you? He's like, well, he used to go out for a long run. He like ran all the way across town and back, carrying the fucking football.
It's ridiculous.
And we'd totally spaced him out. We'd forgot. he lived in this house with these people, and they'd forgotten about his very existence. They're like, oh, so that's why we stopped playing. You took the football. Pretty bizarre. That's what acid does to you, I'll tell you.
When did you say he caught the football and then he ran away?
Yeah, he ran away with it. And we were just so fucked up that we spaced out the fact that he had run away with it. We stopped playing because we didn't have a football, and we didn't even remember why we had stopped playing. We didn't even think to say, where's the football? Where are you going, Joe?
Well, I was 16 by this time, and I met this one guy, and you know, I thought I was crazy about him. I thought I was in love and all this, and we went off to Scotland and got married because he had all this money. He had $8,000. He got shot in the eye when he was 14 years old, so he had all this money, and it was really great. And we had a great time, and we did a bunch of stuff, you know. And some really weird things happened to me there, but I don't know whether to say anything or not, because I don't know whether I can say anything about this, but I can if I want. It's about drugs and stuff. Is that okay?
That's totally cool.
Okay, well, okay, we were in Scotland, and we had a ton of money, and believe it or not, we had all this money, and we even slept out in this basement thing for one night just because the banks were closed. Isn't that dumb? I mean, we could have gone to bed and breakfast and stayed there, but we didn't. So anyway, so we're in Scotland. Okay, I'm in Scotland. I've married this guy, and I'm in Scotland. I'm 16 years old, you know, and I think the world is great and everything, but it's not really, because he turned out to be a right arsehole in the end. But anyway, so we didn't have anywhere to get any drugs, you know, smoking hash and getting real stoned and all that stuff. So we did the dumbest thing of all, which I did one time, and it was kind of cool, but it's the stupidest thing of all, is to sniff glue, okay? Now there's this glue, what we use in England, is called Evo Stick, and it's this really strong glue, and I've had some really amazing hallucinations from this stuff. So this is like on our wedding night, okay, sniffing glue, great, you know. So anyway, we sniffed this glue, and anyway, we went to Aberdeen. We met this one guy. He was busking on the streets, and we met him, and we went up to Aberdeen and stayed with a bunch of friends there, and we did all this acid and just tripped out of our brains and stuff like that too, and that was good fun. And anyway, the end of Scotland, we go back to where we live in our little town in Romford, and on the way back he's like, yeah, my mum said you can come live with me, you know, it's cool, we're married, you know. So when I get back there, she gives me so much shit. She just gives me all that shit, you know, you ran off with my son, you know, doing this, doing that. I'm like, what, you know, and I'm like, I love the guy, da 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 da, you know, because I really honestly thought I loved the guy, you know, just because, you know, you do. I mean, you just think you do at 16 years old, and you think you're in love and all this, but you're not really. But and anyway, I lived there for a while, and he's pretty much drugged out of his brain. He never wanted to work. He called himself an anarchist, you know, but I don't know whether he was an anarchist or not, because of the things. He used to work not a couple of days, and then he didn't, and then he did, and then he didn't, and then he wouldn't work at all for like 6 months, and would just live off of what he had left, and then well, anyway, he was a dick. I mean, he was just an arsehole, and I just blew him off altogether, really.
We took a gun. And well, anyway, we thought this was no big deal, so we just took this gun. And next day, I was in school. I was in sixth period math class with Mrs. Prell. And she would say, it's Mrs. Prell. It's just like the shampoo, so it's easy to spell. She thought that was really funny. Strange woman, Mrs. Prell.
She was cute, though. Then I had her for math, and I was doing really bad in math. I hated math. So I was sitting there playing with myself, and over the loudspeaker, the vice principal, Mr. Frank Normanstein. Do you get the significance? Frank N. period Stein. Frankenstein. That was his name, I swear to God. He had a crew cut shorter than... It was short. And he had... You could see his bone. And he was big. And he would hit people. It was...
I liked him a lot. I really liked this man. So, he calls him, says over the loudspeaker, "Will John Harriman please come down to the vice principal's office?"
Oh man, this sucks. So, I went down to the vice principal's office and I saw Mr. Stein, and because he usually would just hit me upon a hello. He was a fun guy like that. But he didn't hit me, and I thought, oh, I must really be in deep shit now, man. So he said, "Please step into my office." And I stepped into his office, and there was a man behind the desk
Where Mr. Stein usually sat. And Mr. Stein closed the door behind me without entering himself. And I thought, oh man, who is this dude sitting here looking at me with those cold, cool, dead eyes? And the man said to me real slow and low, said, "Hi, John. I'm Officer O'Brien. Why is it every cop that deals with kids has an Irish name? I don't know. But," he said, "John, I'd like to inform you of your rights." My rights? I know my rights, Officer O'Brien. You see, I watched Dragnet. In retrospect, not a very smart thing to say. He didn't think this was funny. I thought it was very clever for an 8th grader, but he didn't agree. So he said, "You have the right to remain silent, to talk on the phone, to eat food in small quantities." I don't remember. He said all that, your rights, lawyers and stuff. So I was pretty upset. And he said, "We've got you nailed on a few robbery jobs, John. Why did you steal the gun? Why did you steal the gun? Were you going to kill somebody?" And I said, "No, I needed it for school." And he said, "What did you need it in school for, John?" And I said, "Well, I'm not doing very good in Mrs. Prell's 6th period math class, am I? So I needed to try and improve my grade. Exterminate! 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 God, that was a great show, wasn't it?
We enough and coin it no crap. Sit down, which how long down again should tide would come. Should look 100 for the dues to like the G. Love show to the empire slow and years pays that not gaze. For or eat 30,000 the rest. You just state nor would I rate at my bed hurrying under off like dead ass. Thine beauty found, nor in a vault on the queens. I shall try that preserved fine and place in my thinker. Oh, therefore, as you sit in like morning, and while shoal treads of every part and fires, let us spot we may, and ravenous be rather, our time devour in his slow power. Let us roll our strength and honest up and tool, and pleasures with rough fruits of life. Though we may not stand still, shall make him. That was good.
Very good, Anton.
Thank you.
Well, here's the story what happened. We decided to go live in this rented house, okay? And he was like, by this time, you know, scoring drugs and stuff, you know, he was like dealing it and stuff, you know, like hash, that's all, okay, hash, nothing else, and a bit of acid now and again. And anyway, we had all this hash lying around, tons of it, da-da-da-da-da. And we're living in this house. We shared it with someone, but they were hardly ever there. And it was above a dry cleaning place, okay, and a pub was next door. And there were these really ferocious dogs that used to try and bite off your ankles every time you used to go up the stairs. But anyway, we were there for a while, and we had this huge argument, this really big argument, and, you know, I guess everyone has their arguments, but, like, I mean, when people have arguments, you know, they don't say, well, fuck you, and then they pull everything down. This is what he did. He pulled everything down from the cupboards and everything, and he's put it in the middle of the room, and he grabbed the marriage certificate and he put it on and he set it on fire and he locked the door. He locked the door in the room. We're in this small room, and he locked the door. And I was like, fuck you. You know, I was really mad by this time. I ran over to the window. I was kicking him in all the, obvious places that you can think of, you know. So I'm like, shit, you know, what you doing? And I'm like, so I'm kicking everything, you know, trying to get the fire going out, you know, and I'm like, you maniac, getting the covers and beating the covers like this. And I had a spare key, like, it was like sitting on the side, like sitting on like the dresser thing. And I'm like, I lifted up the window, I'm shouting, help! And I chucked the key down, I chucked the front door key, and I'm like, help me, fire, help me! You know, and there's my husband, like, fuck you, you know, swearing at me, what you think you're doing, and he's trying to grab me, and I'm like holding on with my arm out the window like this, and he's trying to pull me back, you know. And then I was up there for like 5-10 minutes, and somebody come running up the stairs and beating on the door like this. Like, you know, open up the door, and I'm like, you open up the door, you arsehole, you know. And he like, so in the end, he opened up the door, and I'm like, see you later, and I shot off. Well, I picked up a bunch of money and a bunch of drugs, and then I said, see you later, I'm going. So, and then I left, and then that was the end of that. The end.
You're learning quickly.
He said, well, we're going to call your mother. So when you get home today, she'll know all that you've done. And how will you feel then? And I said, I don't know. We'll see. He let me go, and I had to report to the police station in a couple of days. But I was in my mom's custody, so I went home, and Officer O'Brien, without informing me, decided to also tell my mother about the fact that I had recently stolen 3 sticks of dynamite from the freight yards behind my house. So I got home. My mom didn't say anything to me. She didn't say a thing. That was my first encounter with cops.